Hello everyone. In this video, we will take a look at Zoho Expense and how it will help you manage your business travel and also process employee reimbursements with ease. Zoho Expense is an online travel and expense reporting solution that helps you manage your entire business travel process, automate the expense creation for employees, streamline the approval workflows, and also process reimbursements very easily. These are the few high-level functionalities that we can do in Zoho Expense. So starting with the travel booking process, receipt auto-scan for the employees, creating expense reports, defining the category limits, and also ensuring policy control and compliance within the application, Zoho Expense helps you manage your entire travel and expense management lifecycle. Along with this, we have also provided dedicated modules for corporate card management and also for purchase request. Let's start with the travel booking process in Zoho Expense. There are different ways through which businesses process the travel booking process. So there are companies who allow the employee to book the flights and hotels directly using their own money and then process a reimbursement for it. Or they have a travel desk where you send an email to your manager, get approval for business travel, and forward it to the travel desk to process the bookings. Or then there is an option of an online travel booking tool where the travel policies can be loaded and the employees will be able to book flights and hotels on their own. In Zoho Expense, we have an online travel booking tool inbuilt into the software. Zoho Expense integrates with Make My Trips, MyBiz platform, where the employees can automatically book their flights, hotels, car rentals, and trains on a real-time basis. Every time they need to book a business travel process, they can come into Zoho Expense, initiate a booking, and then complete the booking on MyBiz platform. They can choose what flights and hotels are available to them as per their policy, and it is sent for approval via Zoho Expense. Upon approval, the flight tickets and hotels are booked on MyBiz and the tickets are created in Zoho Expense as well. Now, this process ensures a lot of control in terms of the travel booking process. Now, if the employee is making their bookings on their own or if it was via a travel desk, there is a lot of delay that happens. If it is via the personal booking process, then the employee can spend at will and it leads to a lot of overspend within the organization and there is no control on the expense management process or on the travel booking side of it. And if it is via a travel desk, then there is a lot of emails that go between the travel desk, the approver, and the admin to ensure one business travel process. So this is what we eliminate with the help of the online travel booking process, where you can load your travel policies on the travel booking software, and then it is automatically processed via approvals inside Zoho Expense. You can also integrate with low-cost carriers, that is, if there is a particular airline that provides low cost in terms of business travel bookings, then that can also be provided into Zoho Expense. And in addition to this, you can also choose your own airline agreements if you have any, or if you have any agreements with any hotel bookings, that can also be loaded onto the platform to ensure that you save the maximum amount possible in terms of travel booking. Now, let's say if you do not want to go for the online travel booking process and if you want to stick to the travel desk that you have. So Zoho Expense has a dedicated corporate travel desk management software that allows you to fulfill your travel using the travel desk that you have. So in Zoho Expense, we have provided a complete itinerary where you will be able to entirely mention your travel details in travel plans in detail, and then it will be submitted to the manager and then to the travel desk to process the bookings. So this ensures that there is a faster turnaround time between the managers and the travel desk as well, so that there is a travel booking process that comes or runs very smoothly and there is no need of a lot of email communications. So let's directly go into the application and see how that works. So this is how the UI or the user interface of Zoho Expense looks like. So it is a very simple to use application where the entire dashboard or the home screen shows you all your recent summary, your unsubmitted reports, reports that await approval from you, and the reports that you have submitted and is awaiting reimbursement. You can simply create expenses from the quick add buttons inside the application here. We have different modules and dedicated modules inside Zoho Expense for different functionalities. For example, the trips module allows you to create and submit travel requests. You can create your expenses in the expenses module. You can create advances, purchase requests, and connect your cards within the application. We have dedicated views for the submitter user, that is the My View. We have an admin view here where the admin gets a specific dashboard and the bird's eye view of the spend summary of the organization. And then there is a travel desk view where the travel desk operations can be run very simply, and the travel desk and the admin can see what are the upcoming trips inside the organization. So we will see all of this in detail. So starting with the travel desk process, we have a trips module that allows you to create your travel requests within the application. So every time there is a travel, you can go into the plus new trip button inside Zoho Expense and then fulfill this itinerary. So this itinerary is, or this form is completely customizable, and you can define what the fields or the layout should be like. Let's say if I'm traveling to Delhi for a business trip, I can create a trip to Delhi, mention this as a domestic trip, mention the business purpose, associate if any projects are there on this particular travel. I can enter the budget amount and also select the other fields that have been mentioned over here. Now these fields are completely customizable, so this is a custom field that I have created. So you can select multiple options that are available to you, and you can also mark if any other user in your organization is traveling. Along with this, you can also define additional functionalities or additional fields like a customer or the duration of the trip. Any additional requirement that you have can be configured in this particular section. The trip itinerary allows you to create the entire itinerary of your business trip inside this particular travel request and then send it for your travel desk to make a booking. So if you have a flight, a hotel, a car rental, and along with this, if you want a bus or a train booking, all of this can be created as different itineraries within Zoho Expense itself. If it is a round trip, you can select this option, and if there are multi-city travel involved in your business trip, you can choose multi-city and add the different preferences for your trip. So let's say if I want to go for a round trip, so I can select the to and fro location from here and enter the date of travel. So let's say if I'm traveling on the 4th of April until the 6th, I can mention my date of travel here, mention my preferred time of travel, and also the return travel dates as well. Along with this, you can also mention your class of travel that you want to choose on the departure and on the arrival front. Let's say if I want to travel in economy, I'll mention both of this over here, and also choose my seat preferences or meal preferences if any. And the same applies for hotel as well. So you can request for hotels in multiple cities, mention the check-in time and the checkout time that is preferred for your business trip. Mention if any description. So if you want to pass on any information to the travel desk, for example, any particular location that you want to travel. So let's say I want to stay near the airport. So I can just mention that over here so that my travel desk can take an action on this. And if I require a car rental on a particular date, I can request for that also. So let's say I need a car rental for 2 days or for the same day, and I can mention my request over here. Along with this, you can also mention what type of car that you would like to prefer on this particular trip. So the same applies for a bus and a train booking also. So if you require bus booking between 2 cities or a train booking between 2 cities, you can opt for the same. So once you have filled your entire itinerary, you can save this particular travel request and it will look something like this. So all the itinerary will be available here, and then you will be able to add any additional documents. So for example, if you want to add a document on this particular travel request, you can attach it over here, and you can also see the other information of this travel on this section. So once you have configured all the required and filled all the relevant fields, you can submit this particular travel request. So according to your approval workflow that is configured inside the organization, the travel request will be submitted to your manager for approval. So we can define criteria-based multi-level approval workflows within Zoho Expense, and it will be submitted as per the approval workflow. So here I have chosen my approver, and then I have submitted my travel request. And on the admin front, the admin receives a notification that a travel request has been submitted for approval, and they will be able to perform multiple options, including approving this travel request or rejecting it, or even modifying the travel request that is submitted. So if the manager prefers the employee to travel on a different date, let's say if I need to travel on the 5th, then the approver can make the required modifications, make the change on this, and then this information will be updated on the travel request. And once the travel request is approved by the manager, it would then be forwarded to the travel desk so that they can add options onto the travel request. So once the travel request has been approved by the manager, the travel desk will be able to action on it. So the travel desk has multiple options, that is, they will be able to review the entire itinerary of the trip, including flights, hotels, and car rentals, and provide an option to the employee over here. So the travel desk would ideally say or come back to the employee and say that you can travel by Air India, Vistara, or Air Asia, or whatever flight options that they have added. So in the application, we have provided a section where the travel desk can provide options to the employee. Now the travel desk can either fill this particular data over here. So let's say if Indigo is available, I'll be able to mention that on my itinerary field over here and mention the date of time of travel as well. So let's say the travel is for Indigo. I can mention the baggage details, the class of travel, and the flight cost also. And if any notes needs to be passed on to the employee, that can be added in this section, and they can also mention if it is a refundable ticket or not. Along with this, let's say if the travel desk is using a particular GDS to obtain the flight fares and the rates inside the application. So we have provided an itinerary parser over here where the travel desk will be able to paste an itinerary from the GDS, and then this also will be created as options within the application. Once the options have been added, the employee will be able to select the options from inside the application here. So as an end user, I will be able to see that these 3 options have been provided for me. The entire detailed breakdown of the travel will be available in the itinerary section, and it will also be highlighted whether if a particular flight is a low fare flight available for this particular trip. So based on my selection, so let's say according to my preference, I want to travel by this particular flight. So once this selection is confirmed, the travel desk gets a notification that a flight preference has been selected by the employee. So when the travel desk opens this particular travel request, they will be able to select and see that this particular option has been chosen by the employee, whereas there is a low fare inside this. So we can also add an additional cost approval inside this, where the travel desk or the admin will be able to approve or reject the option that is selected by the employee. So here the employee has selected a higher fare, whereas a low fare option is available. So in case it needs to be rejected, that also can be done within the app. So let's say I approve this particular travel request. So once this approval is done by the travel desk will also be able to add a ticket into the application so that the employee receives this ticket at their end. The same applies for hotel as well. So if the travel desk has already added a hotel option inside this particular travel request, the employee will be able to select the options from their particular view itself. So as an employee, I'll be able to select the option from the options that are provided to me over here. Now the best part is that all of this can be done on a mobile app itself. So Zoho Expense comes on a mobile app where the entire operations or the entire process that I showed, including the travel request part, the adding the options or selecting the options, or the entire functionality of Zoho Expense can be done on a mobile app itself. So this is how the Zoho Expense mobile app looks like. So all the functionalities that I said, like creating travel requests or expenses or advances or purchase request, everything can be processed from the mobile app itself. So the mobile app also comes with a home screen where you can see your detailed breakdown of the travel request and expenses that I have submitted till now. So the itinerary that I showed on screen can be created within Zoho Expense, and then it can be submitted for approval. So let's say I have this particular travel request over here. So the same options that I need to select, right? My travel desk has provided me with options, and I can select this particular hotel button and select the option that I want in terms of hotel booking. So I can also see the breakdown of the address or other details of this particular travel, and I can select the option that I want to choose from. So once this option has been selected, the travel desk receives a notification that an employee has selected an option, and then they will be able to add a ticket onto that. So on the screen you see that the employee has selected this particular option. So this is what I showed using the mobile app, and the travel desk will be able to approve it and then attach a booking confirmation onto this travel request itself. Now once this is done, the approval is completed, the travel booking is done, and the ticket is completed, this particular travel request would then be considered as completed, and the employee can go on a business trip. Once the business travel has been completed and the employee has gone on the business trip, they would definitely have expenses that they need to reimburse for, right? So there are different methods to which the employee can create an expense in Zoho Expense. So we have simplified the process so much in Zoho Expense so that we have ensured that we can capture the receipt from its source of the expense itself. So there are multiple expense creation processes and methods inside Zoho Expense. Let's take a look at one by one very easily. So the easiest way to create an expense is through the Zoho Expense mobile application that you see on screen here. So like I said earlier, there are different ways or different modules that they can access, and they can easily create an expense using the camera button on the bottom here. So once the employee selects the camera button, they will be able to take a photo of the receipt very easily and then upload it for auto scan. There are different ways. They can either take a quick scan, they can choose a single photo of the receipt, choose a multi-page receipt, or select any particular data from their gallery as well. So Once the expense has been uploaded for auto scan, it would be automatically available in the expenses module over here, and an auto scan process will be initiated. So the auto scan scans the receipt for multiple information like the date, the merchant name, category, amount, currency. All this information is automatically captured from the receipt and created as an expense entry. So the fields that you see on the right hand side are extremely customizable, and the employee can create, or the admin can create, multiple fields inside this to capture different data. So for example, here in this receipt, the merchant name, category, amount, currency, as well as other fields like the description and reference number or the invoice number has been captured automatically itself. So just like that, the employee is able to just take a photo of the receipt and create an expense very easily. There are also other methods where, for example, they can upload a receipt from their computer that also will automatically start a scan, or they can manually fill a receipt form here and enter the data from the information on the right hand side, and also upload a receipt from the computer here. Now, if you provide mileage reimbursements or local conveyance to the employee can just enter the distance travel and claim the mileage that is applicable to him. So for example, the employee will be able to choose what vehicle he is traveled for, enter the distance traveled or the odometer reading of the vehicle here. So let's say if I travel for 15 kilometers, I can enter the distance as 15, and the expense will be automatically created and checked for the company policies. But if it is from the mobile application, the employee can track the distance using the GPS for mileage. So we have provided a GPS tracker functionality for the employee where they can click on the track mileage using GPS, and the application will automatically track the distance that they have traveled, and then a mileage expense will be created automatically for the employee here. Now on Android devices, Zoho Expense also is integrated with Google Maps such that you can track the GPS and also capture the route that is traveled by the user, and the mileage entry will be automatically posted. So when the approver reviews the expense report or the mileage claim, they will be able to see the route traveled by the user as well as the distance that is covered by the employee as well. So as the admin, you can define the rate per kilometer inside the application based on different vehicles. So for example, if the employees use an own car, you provide them with 7 rupees per kilometer, but if they use a two-wheeler, then the rate would change to 2.75. So these rates can be configured from the admin side, and the employee can use the GPS functionality or the map functionality and ensure that the distance is captured automatically by the application itself. We also have an option for the employees to claim per diem allowances. Now per diem is very configurable inside Zoho Expense, where different kind of per diem can be created inside the app, where for example, if it is based on a different location that they travel to, or if it is based on the distance, based on the number of hours they work on a particular travel claim, or if they work on a particular project, or if it is based on components, per diem can be very easily created. So if I select Mumbai as a location and the date of travel as, let's say, 25th to the 1st of this month, then per diem expenses according to my eligibility will be created over here. So Zoho Expense lets you create policies inside the application based on different grades and based on different hierarchy or based on different departments, and the per diem that is applicable to this particular employee will be automatically created inside the application. And any other relevant fields can also be made mandatory if needed, and additional custom fields can also be created within the application. So once these per diem expenses have been created, you can save and close the particular travel expense claim. So all the expenses that are created will be available here in the expenses module. So if an employee, before submitting it, they want to review it, they can review it from this screen over here. There are also additional ways through which an expense can be created, for example, from a corporate card. So all the corporate cards can be connected inside Zoho Expense via the direct feed integration. So we integrate directly with MasterCard, with American Express, and also with Visa, so that all card transaction can be fetched into Zoho Expense as different line items. So every time there is a card expense, it is automatically reflected inside the employee's account like this, and an expense can also be created with the card transaction. We have also added multiple functionalities inside the app. For example, a receipt that you upload will be automatically matched with the card transaction based on the amount, category, and the date of the particular expense claim. Once all the expenses are created, it will be available in the expense section here, and the employee can then create an expense report. So an expense report is nothing but a file in which you can add all your expenses together and then submit them for approval. You can also track the status of different expense reports based on their statuses that you see on the screen over here. To create a new report, you can click on the plus new report button and fill in the details like this. So for example, if this is for the Delhi trip, you can mention the details over here and also select the trip that you have approved, that you have in your name and that is approved. Once the expense report is created, you will be able to then associate expenses. You can either select multiple expenses from the expenses module and add it to the report, or you can add unreported expenses from the screen over here. You can select what expenses you want to include. So let me include all these expenses that I incurred on this particular trip and include my per diem expenses as well. Once these expenses are added to the expense report, the entire calculation will be made and the summary of the expense report will be shown over here. Zoho Expense also checks the expense report for different policy violations that have occurred inside the organization. So as an admin, you can configure different rules and policies inside the application in terms of what is a receipt required limit, what is a per category expense limit, daily, monthly or yearly limits on expense categories to ensure the spend control inside the organization. Once an employee creates a travel expense report, it looks like this, where all the data of the expense report is available and the employee can also group them together by date, amount or category if needed. Once the expense report is created, they can also add additional tags if necessary or attach a document if required and then submit the expense report. Now, when an employee submits an expense report, the application automatically prompts them if any unused advances needs to be applied. So if there is any advances that are available in the employee's name, they can choose the same from over this section and apply the advance into the expense report. Once the advance payment has been associated, there will be a detailed breakdown of the amount to be reimbursed. So there was a total reimbursement of 7,900 requested by the employee, out of which 5,500 has been deducted as the advance and only the remaining would be reimbursable back to the employee. Once the expense report has been created and all the advances have been applied, the employee can then submit it for your approval. So you can configure criteria-based multi-level approval workflows inside Zoho Expense so that the expense report is submitted as per the hierarchy and as per the criteria. For simplicity, let me just select an approver from the drop-down and submit the expense report for them for approval. Once the expense report is submitted, you will be able to see the status changing over here, and if the employee needs to make any changes, they will be able to recall it so that they can make modifications and then resubmit it again. Let me switch over to the approvers view to show you how the expense report would be approved by the manager. Once the expense report has been submitted, the status would change to awaiting approval and then the manager will be able to action on the particular expense report. Let me quickly switch over to the approvers view and show you how the expense report would be approved. So this is the particular expense report that was submitted by the user, and as the approver, I have multiple options like the approve or the reject button inside the expense report. I can view if any policies are being violated inside the expense report. I can also see check the receipts in detail. So if I need to zoom in on the particular receipt, I can do that. I can edit the expense and make modifications if necessary. And I also have an option to reject individual expenses from the expense report by providing an appropriate reason. If any clarification is to be obtained from the employee, I can also add a comment onto this particular expense line item and mention the employee over here so that this particular employee can provide me a reason, a clarification before I approve this expense report. We also have another collaboration functionality is the chatlets, where you can create a chat group with all relevant stakeholders of this particular expense report and then create a group chat with them. So this ensures that there is a faster turnaround time in terms of expense reporting and make sure that the approvals happen faster. And once I have reviewed this particular expense report and made all necessary changes, I can then approve the expense report over here. So once the expense report is approved by one manager according to the approval workflow, it can also be submitted to multiple managers, whereas I have configured a one-level approval workflow here. And once the expense report has been approved, I will then be able to record a reimbursement against this particular expense report. Now, there are multiple ways through which you can record a reimbursement in Zoho Expense. So if you have a ICICI bank integration, then you can connect your ICICI bank account with Zoho Expense to process the employee reimbursement directly from the company bank account into the employee's bank account. You can also integrate Zoho Expense with Zoho Payroll so that you can add the reimbursement data into Zoho Payroll so that the employee's reimbursement is added along with the pay run and it is paid along with the salary. Otherwise, you can also generate an awaiting reimbursements by user reports inside Zoho Expense and include all the reimbursement information, and it can be sent to the bank directly for reimbursement. This report will contain all additional information like the employee bank account, the IFSC code, the routing number. All this information will be available in the report that can directly be sent to the bank. Now, once the process is completed, right, all the travel request is completed, the expense reporting is done, the employee has submitted, there is another advantage that the admin gets. So for example, I had created my travel request over here and it was submitted and approved. One added advantage inside the travel request module is that on a particular travel request, you can see the entire cost of that particular business travel. You can see the flight prices, you can see the hotel prices of this particular booking, and also see if any associated reports have been created by the employee pertaining to this particular travel request. You can also see if any cash advances have been provided to this employee on this particular travel request itself. Zoho Expense also allows the employees to create and submit purchase requests for approval. The purchase request module allows the employee to create a purchase request, mention the expense date, fill in all the fields that are mentioned over here, choose the item or add multiple line items, choose the category, preferred vendor, quantity, and the estimated rate, and then submit it to you for approval. You can configure a criteria-based multi-level approval workflow for purchase request if needed. All the submitted purchase requests will be available in this particular section over here, and you can filter it based on requests that are awaiting approval, and you can also see the approved purchase request over here. These purchase requests can also be linked with an expense if necessary. So if you have an approved purchase request in your name, you can incur the actual expense for it and also map it with the purchase request that you have approved in your name. Now this is how you create the entire life cycle of a business travel inside Zoho Expense. So right from an online travel booking or a travel desk process, you can choose between the two. You can also submit or include your travel desk into the booking process. The employees can create expenses using multiple methods and then submit it as part of an expense report, apply the advances, and also process approvals and reimbursements within Zoho Expense. So that is the overview of Zoho Expense in terms of an employee perspective. But in terms of an admin, in terms of a business owner, what kind of configurations can you do to ensure cost control or spend control within the organization? Now, over the last few years, we have seen multiple changes in terms of how the different companies have approached expense reporting. A lot of companies now want to cut cost on employee spend. So how do we do that with Zoho Expense? So we have a dedicated policies module inside Zoho Expense that allows you to bifurcate the users into different hierarchies or different designations as per your expense policy, and you can define different rules inside the application. So you can define a category-wise limits if needed, that is on a general basis, what is the expense amount limit, receipt required limit, etc. and also in terms of expense categories. So let's say if you want to override the general rules for a meals category, you can define a different limit for meals and also lower the receipt required limit if needed and save it as a category limit. So here there is a limit across the organization and also a category-wise limit. You can also configure mileage rate within the application based on different vehicles. So let's say starting from a particular date, you can mention different rates for different vehicles inside the application and also choose how you want the employee to claim expenses. So for example, you might have a sales team that is recording mileage expenses very frequently, and you might want to validate their expense claims. So if it is an owned car, if you want them to record mileage expenses only via GPS, you can enable this option here. So if the employee is opting for an owned car mileage, then they will be able to create expenses only via GPS, such that when you approve or review these particular expense claims, you will be able to see the route map of the user also on the mileage expense itself. You can also configure different type of per diem inside Zoho Expense. So like I mentioned, you can create per diem either based on travel hours. For example, if an employee travels for let's say 0 to 6 hours, then they are eligible only for 50% of the per diem. If it is 6 to 24 hours, then they get an entire 100% of their per diem eligibility. So per diem can be configured either for a location or based on the travel hours that they incur. You can also add per diem based on expense types and expense components. So let's say if I travel to a particular city in India, let's say if I travel to Mumbai, then 2000 rupees will be my per diem, but it will be split across different components. So for example, there will be a component for food, there will be a component for lodging, and one for incidentals as well. So I can split the entire per diem into different components over here. Here, if the employee selects Mumbai as the location, then they will also be able to see the detailed breakdown of their food, lodging, or incidentals on the per diem expense. So this can be done based on your company policy. So however you provide per diem in your organization, we can accommodate the same inside Zoho Expense as well. We also have a dedicated rules module inside Zoho Expense where you can define a daily, monthly, or an yearly limit on expense categories. So for example, if you have a daily limit on meals for employees in this particular policy, so you can mention that daily limit over here and mention whether if it is inclusive or exclusive of tax and select the category that this is applicable to. You can also define whether you want to warn the employee or block the employee from creating such expenses. So once this is created, the rule will be applied, and for all the users in this particular policy, there will be a 1000 rupees limit on daily expenses on meals. Similar to this, you can also create different expense limits like a monthly limit on telephone bills if needed, a yearly limit on any particular subscription that you allow your employees to do. You can define different rules inside the application. But every company has different rules and different unique requirements in terms of expense rules inside the organization. That is why we have a custom rule inside the application where you can define a particular if and or criteria to define the expense rule. Let's take a simple example of a telephone bill reimbursement. If you have employees worldwide and if you reimburse expenses only in one particular category, so you can say that if the category is a particular category, let's say if it is telephone bill reimbursements, and if the currency of the expense is of a different currency, let's say if it is US dollars, then you want the employees to be blocked from submitting such expense claims. So you can define a particular criteria upon which the expense submission is blocked, and you can provide them with a violation message and save this particular rule. So if an employee creates an expense, a telephone bill reimbursement in any other currency apart from INR, then it will be automatically blocked. So let's say I change it from is not INR. So here we can say that if an expense is created in if an expense for telephone bill is created and if it is not in INR, then it will be automatically blocked from submission. This rule can also be added to prevent multiple situations. So let's say if you have a situation in your organization that if the employee is provided with a per diem of 1000 rupees per day for lodging, but they also submit a separate lodging claim for expense reimbursement. So that leads to a double reimbursement within the organization. So in order to prevent that, you can also set this up based on per diem amounts. So if it is based on the expense type, you can define it over here and say that if the food claimed is less than 100%, then it needs to be blocked from submission. So you can create different rules inside the organization over here. We also have an audit functionality inside Zoho Expense, whereas every expense report that is submitted can be audited for approval. So there are multiple audit rules available. For example, if there is a data mismatch between the data on the receipt and the data on the expense claim form, then it will be flagged as an audit failed expense claim. You can verify the card statements, prevent employees from overriding the exchange rate. We fetch exchange rates from a website called Open Exchange Rates, and it is automatically done within the application. But if the employee is editing the exchange rate or offsetting the exchange rate by even 0.5, they would lead to a higher amount of reimbursement. So if you want the expenses to be flagged in terms of where the exchange rate has been modified, or if you want to set up a block list of merchants, or verify the mileage claim between GPS tracked mileage and the distance entered by the user. That is, if the GPS has tracked only 15 kilometers, whereas the employee has entered it as a 20 kilometer reimbursement. So such mismatches can be identified with the help of Zoho Expense. You can also find out if employees have created the same expense twice by checking for duplicate across the organization. So with the help of different rules and audits inside the organization and with the help of policies, you will be able to control spend across the organization. You can eliminate overspending, you can eliminate double reimbursements, and also ensure that only valid expense claims have been submitted. We have also added multiple functionalities in terms of policy and spend control within the organization. One such module is the budgets module that you can configure a general budget or a user level budget inside the application. So let's say if you want to define a budget for a quarter inside the organization. So you can define the budget, let's say for Q3, define the fiscal year what it is for, and define whether if it is a monthly or a quarterly budget. You can also associate budgets with a particular tag or for a particular project, and you can also ensure that project-based budgets have been configured inside the app. You can also mention if it needs to be tracked on an expense category level or on an expense type level or on different expense amounts. So if it is for category, all the list of categories will be available inside the application, and you can enter the budget amount over here. You can use the pre-fill from actuals button to make sure that you can select data from a previous year and use that as a budget for this particular year. Once you have entered the budget, it would look something like this, where you have all the budgets for a particular year or for a particular quarter created inside the application over here like this. Now there are different advantages to why you should create budgets inside the application. So one advantage is that it keeps a track of all the spend within the organization. You can enable functionalities like warning the employees when a particular budget is near exhaustion. So let's say if I create an expense for 10,000 rupees today and it has exhausted 75% of my budget. So I can send a notification to the user that it is nearing the budget. You as an administrator can see the budgets versus actuals for this particular budget here. So like you see on the screen here, you can see that what was the defined budget and what was the actual expense incurred by the employees, and whether if the expense is over the budget or under the budget over here. Now this helps you in faster decision making. But there are a lot of expense reporting applications in the market, right? So why choose Zoho Expense there? So what makes Zoho Expense different is the different functionalities that are available inside it. For example, a contextual user interface. If you have a new user or if you are just implementing Zoho Expense, it is very easy for your employees to get started on the application just for the sake of simplicity. It is a very simple to use application that can be used by any employee in the organization. It is a completely customizable application when it comes to field customizations or workflow notifications or email notifications, SMS alerts, or adding multiple data types within the application. Everything is customizable end to end within Zoho Expense. You can configure criteria-based multi-level approval workflow inside the application all by yourself without having to reach out to the product team at all. Zoho Expense can also be integrated with different applications very easily. So when it comes to integrations, it can be integrated with multiple applications, including applications on the Zoho ecosystem, accounting and ERP applications, travel management applications, with VAT reclaim applications, and also with other applications like, let's say, Office 365 for single sign-on, or Google Workspace to get the data from there. Different applications can be integrated with Zoho Expense, and it does not stop with the applications that you see on the screen. Even if you have a custom in-house application that you have developed for ERP or for accounting purposes, we can integrate with them. We can also integrate with different ride-hailing providers, or even with any other BI tool for analytic purposes as well. So with that, I would like to conclude this session, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to sales@zohoexpense.com, and we'll be able to look into your expense policies, suggest you best practices, and also show you how Zoho Expense can make a change to your travel and expense management policy. Thank you.